Okay, I'm going to do a close-up, just one or two tiles. I have unglazed tiles, but you can use glazed tiles for your pours. I just like these because there's no slick surface to worry about the paint adhering. But the back side, I want to totally cover it with frog tape because there are going to be a lot of fingerprints on the underside. There's going to be drips, and then I'm going to resin it, and this saves you a lot of hassle after the tiles have dried and set up with the resin and everything on them. So I just go through and I tape off the four corners. So I tape one side and I put my fingernail right in that corner and tear at an angle. Take a strip off. So then I start in the next corner. Let's see, pull it back so you can see here. I start in the next corner, go along the edge, then come to this corner, put my fingernail there, and tear at an angle. So there's two strips done. Some people use razor knives, but I just use my fingernails and tear. I did faux finishes for almost 20 years and taped so many walls and corners and trim. I just learned very quickly to do it this way with my using my fingers. So each corner is going to be nice and neat, and it's torn at an angle so it doesn't overlap the edge of your tile. So I've got one last corner to do, and so I always start with the angled piece of tape that I have first. Get it set up in the corner where I need it. That corner is a little too sharp, so I'm going to get it more to like a 45-degree angle. So I'll go across that last edge, and then right here, get it back here where you can see it. Take my fingernail and tear at an angle. So it ends up looking like this, and then I just take my leftover pieces that I have from edges I've torn, and I totally cover in that middle part so that no paint or resin will be on the underside of the tile. And then after it's painted and resined, I peel the tape off, and it's a nice clean edge that will look just like this. And then I take the cork square adhesive pieces that I get on my Amazon link. That is in the link below my video, the Amazon link. Those cork square 4-inch pieces, they have an adhesive strip you just pull off the paper backing and stick on beautifully, nice and tight. So that's how I finish off my tiles. So here is one that's ready to go. I've got another 30 or so to do. Happy taping. I'm getting ready to do about 30 plus tiles. I did some in October and had a blast with them, even though they didn't come out the way I had envisioned. They were still really pretty. And I purchased the Shelee Art course. It's Shelee Carruthers in Australia. And I have a link below the video, and there is a coupon code 15% off if you want to purchase her paid course. It's $100 in Australia, which I think is about $70 in American dollars. I took the course, and she has a paid Facebook private group for only the paid members of the class to share recipes and things. And she's very well known. I've followed her for a couple of years. She's very well known for her bloom effect with her recipe that she's done and the way she stretches her cells. And so I have been attempting this, but this is only my second try. So, you know, I've got a lot to learn, but just kind of looking at different people's recipes and kind of just using what I have already in my studio. So I am going to, I've already mixed up colors, but I'm going to mix up two for you right now and just show you the variety of kinds of colors that I'm using. and kind of the recipe, but it's not a straightforward recipe. It's not an exact thing. I'm just kind of playing with it at this point in the game. But what will happen is that first on my tile or on your small canvas or whatever, you'll put a base coat of just straight white satin paint, and the one I used that I had in my house was Valspar Signature Paint and Primer Satin Finish, the Ultra White. So you'll put that down on your surface first, and you want a pretty healthy dose of it. She calls that a pillow. So the Valspar white paint will be my pillow. And then I will put little puddles of color. And so that's what I've mixed up is these colors, and I've added pouring medium to it. So the pouring medium that I mixed is Valspar Ultra Everyday Paint and Primer Satin Finish, but most people use gloss. So I only had satin in the house, and this is base C, or you want ultra deep base. So you want kind of, it's like a clear base that has not been tinted in the store yet. So you use probably 3 to 4 parts of that to 1 part high gloss varnish, and the only high gloss varnish I had was Liquitex in the house. Some people use Minwax polyacrylic high gloss varnish. Some use Jo Sonja high gloss varnish, but I only had Liquitex, so I did the Liquitex high gloss varnish. And because I had satin paint and not the gloss paint, I added some golden pouring medium, gloss medium to it. And that was all mixed up in this container and made my pouring medium, which I've added to all of my colors except for the 2 that I'm going to mix for you here. So I've still got to do that. I'm going to show you that in a second. So those goes in little puddles on top of the white pillow of paint, and then you put a cell activator on top, and I'm going to use white, but you could technically use any color, but I'm going to use white because that's typically what most of the people in her group and in Shelley's art style, she uses white. So I used Amsterdam titanium white, and I did probably, let's say, 1 part white paint. I used 1 part glue and probably about 2 parts Floetrol, maybe a little bit more Floetrol, 2 to 3 parts Floetrol. And then because her Floetrol in Australia is a different formula than the US Floetrol, it's recommended to use Minwax. It's called Pre-Stain Wood Conditioner, and you just put several drops into the white paint. So I put maybe 4 or 5 drops. And that is a oil-based product, but it goes into this mixture to make it more like the Floetrol that is in Australia. So that is my cell activator, which goes on top of my colors, and then you blow and you give it a few minutes to rest and settle down, and then you stretch it out. That's technically the way it's supposed to go. Now, whether it goes that way or not, I don't know, because I've tried this before and it was quite frustrating. And I'm going to videotape this, even though I don't know how this time is going to go either, but I'm going to still give it my best try. So I wanted you to kind of see that I'm kind of experimenting with different products, trying it out for myself. If you're interested in Shelley's art course, you can purchase it in the link below. You'll get 15% off of the course. So I've got all different mixtures of colors, and I used a tube paint or 2, but I mostly have Pearl X. If you like, a larger thing looks like this. It's a pigmented powder, and they're metallics, and they are absolutely gorgeous. So they come in a powder form. And I also have a 32-piece set that has little ones. And so you basically, I just use my little stick here. I'll show you right here. Here's this color is called Verde Spring Green. So open it up. This is the first time I've opened this. Take the seal off. And it got some powder on my tile, which I want to make sure is cleaned off. So I'm going to take a little scoop. It's like a little mound on my stick here. And I'm not mixing very large quantities of this because it goes a long way. And I'm going to put Joe Sonia's retarder into it, which is a wet medium, which allows the pigmented powder to mix in with the retarder. Because if you mix this powder straight into your pouring medium, you're going to have possibly lumpy color because the powder doesn't have any way to disperse itself, and it just kind of settles in lumps in the pouring medium. So this way, by adding the retarder to it, it disperses the powder into like a liquid paint. And then I'm going to add enough pouring medium with pigment. I'm going to add probably, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 parts more pouring medium to the paint ratio on this. But because the pigmented powder is so strong, it doesn't take a lot. And my paint that I have here is a lighter base, which is still clear, but it's made for lighter colors. And so it does, unfortunately, sometimes lighten the colors just very slightly. That's why you might want to go for the deep base when you're getting your, you want at least a satin finish or a semi-gloss, and you want a deep base that is not tinted. And I just get it in the quart. And I used Valspar, but people are using all different brands across America, so that is totally up to you. So I've mixed that in, and I want it, fairly fluid. I don't want it to be lumpy or super thick, so that's pretty good right there. And you always make sure to wipe your stick and around the edges and make sure you get it all really mixed in well. So that is kind of like it's almost like a deeper emerald green, but not quite. And I'm thinking I want it a little darker, so I actually have some unicorn spit here, and it's very metallic-y. I'm just going to add this straight into my mixture, which is very deep, but because the pouring medium changes the color slightly, it's going to still be lighter. So that makes it more of a green, a deeper green, which is what I wanted. And I still check the consistency. The unicorn spit made it a little thicker, so I'm going to add a little bit more pouring medium. And there is no perfect measurement on this. You got to go for the feel of it, but you want it pretty fluid. So I'm just again kind of scraping around all my edges, scraping off my stick, and re-stirring, because you want a very smooth, creamy fluid consistency. So that is pretty good right there. So I've got also, besides tube paints, you can use tube or you can use golden fluids. I've used the teal color is in this one here with some pearl pigment powder in it to make it kind of shimmery. So I've got some golden fluid paints, which I typically don't use in my pours, and this was a brand called Art Alchemy Metallique. Frozen Berries is the color. That was an acrylic paint that's very pearlized looking, so I just added straight pouring medium to it to get it to the right consistency. Here is a tube paint straight out of the tube, and it's in my container here, and it's really thick. It doesn't drip or anything. So I'm just going to eyeball the pouring medium, and I'm going to use at least 3 to 4 times the color that I have in the tube in the cup. So this is going to mix up a ton I won't use this on a bunch of tiles. This will actually not get all used, but just for demonstration purposes so you can see how I was doing it. And this is still a bit thick. I'm actually going to add just a little bit of water to it. You could keep adding pouring medium, but the pouring medium I've mixed is kind of on the thicker side because it's got the gloss medium and the base coat, the paint base coat, which is kind of on the thicker side. So the pouring medium is kind of thickish. And that's much better. Make sure to keep scraping your stick on the sides and off the stick so there's no color stuck on your stick that hasn't been mixed in. So I think that's pretty good. It's a little bit thicker, but I'm not going to be using a lot of that color. So I just wanted to show you can use Pearl-Ex pigments that are in powders. You can use liquid acrylics that are already, pre-mixed, or tubes of paint, and then you add your pouring medium to each kind of paint that you choose to color, you choose to mix. So that's my pouring medium that's left in my container here. And I'm just going to cover it for now, just so it doesn't dry out. This is my base, which is just straight white paint, satin paint out of a can. And I'm going to work on 4 tiles at a time because I'm going to do sets of 4 to sell. So I'm going to set up 4 cups, and hopefully you can see this because I'm going to have to blow, and I may try different ways of blowing. I also have all my tiles taped off, which you saw at the beginning. I taped off all the backs of the tiles with frog tape because after they'll have paint fingerprints on them, and I'm going to resin them. And so I won't pull the tape off until they're fully resined and cured, and then I'll take the tape off and I'll have a nice clean bottom to it. Just so you can watch me, and I may struggle with this, I'm not sure. So just bear with me, but I want to put a puddle of paint, and these are unglazed tiles. So you want enough paint that's going to cover the whole tile once it's stretched out. This is what we call a pillow, or what Shelee calls a pillow of paint. So you want enough paint to make sure to cover a good portion of the tile. I may actually even need a little more than I've got. So what I'll do is just add some with my stick. So now this is the cell activator, which is the Amsterdam titanium white glue, Floetrol, and some wood conditioner drops. All right, so here we go. This is kind of hard to do, blowing so hard. It almost makes you feel like you're going to pass out. I'm going to add some white around the edges because this white is thick and it's not moving much. And if you don't like one and it's a tile, you can definitely scrape it off and do it again. So just keep that in mind. Don't frustrate yourself with, going for perfection when you're just experimenting with something that you've never done before, which I've done this once and didn't have a lot of luck with it, so I'm not going to be frustrated. I'm just going to have a good time. stretch, but I don't think I like this one. I'm going to scrape it off. Okay, that did more like the other ones. So let me see if this is stretch or not. I may have to loosen up my white paint a bit. Maybe just too thick, because my paint is not wanting to move. I was trying not to really add water to my colors. So it's just full on, color pigment. But maybe my colors are a bit too thick. And my white is probably too thick as well. And they say that this is it's not a fast thing because you're trying to stretch out the cell pattern. I'm going to try my blow dryer as well. Okay, and that was on the cool setting. You don't want to use heat for sure because it will dry your paint. This paint is so thick right now. That is one of the issues, I think, that's the problem, is that the paint is too thick. Thus it's not moving across the tile for me. So you can see me experiment with how I'm doing this in order to get it right. So I'll bring one up close so you can see it. It's not the way it's really supposed to be yet, but we will work it out somehow. And it might be a good idea to have extra gloves around too if you're going to do a bunch, because it's kind of messy. But again, this is just an ultra white satin finish base coat of white paint. Okay, so I've got 2 sets left, and I'm gonna just do some regular pours on them instead of the Shelee style. I just want to do something a little different. I'm gonna start with this cup that has some white base coat in it, and I want this to be more ocean colors, so I think I'll do a little green in it, but not much. Some of this pretty bronze that I've not used much of. Stick a little cell activator in there. Okay, so I've got a little bit of paint left I want to use up, and I'm going to add a drop of OGX to the cup. This is an 8 by 10, so I'm going to get a 5-ounce cup and just kind of put in the paints kind of randomly with the leftover colors. So I think I'll just do a random drop. Yeah, it just takes 1 drop in your colors with OGX. It does not take much at all. And you'll get magnificent cells. Now, with this being a whole different kind of recipe, I'm not sure how it will look with this kind of recipe. So we'll just play it by ear and see what happens. So I'm going to start with a little white. So I'll heat it just for the fun of it, just because. And it's always true with OGX that the cells are going to grow on their own. The heat just pops air bubbles, so it doesn't really create much larger cells. Now this paint is way more fluid, I can tell by the feel of it, than what my typical 1-to-1 paint Floetrol ratio, because I can feel how loose it is on the canvas. It's a totally different mixture from what I'm used to working with. I think I'm just going to scoop up some of this on the table. This drips of white everywhere. Might as well use it, right? That way your whole canvas is covered, at least at the beginning, huh? So it's just a big mud pie of colors, but like I said, it's very fluid. just going to use the leftovers. So there it is, and I may leave it that way, or I may paint something on top of it after it dries. Who knows? It looks totally different from my regular acrylic pours, like I said, where I use paint and Floetrol, because I can tell they're just blending together because they're so fluid. They're, you know, kind of intermixing. And so, you know, it's all the different colors muted together, and it can go kind of muddy. But we'll see how it dries, and then I might can embellish it with something interesting. So I hope you enjoyed watching this experiment today. It was a long and lengthy one. I fast forwarded through most of it probably for you, so you don't have to sit and wait for hours. It took me quite a while to do this, do all the tiles, but I had fun doing it. And again, if you want to check out sheleeart.com.au, which is Australia, and she's Shelee Carruthers on Instagram and Facebook, and she has a private Facebook group for paid members of her e-course. And if you want to purchase that course, it's in the link below the video, and that's 15% off of the course price. So have a great day, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.